Welcome, Nisha. How are you doing?
I am good. TK Shilpa, TK.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I always get excited when I meet someone who may have some lineage or connection to India, and that's wonderful. And you said you're half Indian, right?
Yes, I am. My father comes from Lucknow and my mother was from Liverpool. So a
Oh,
good mix.
good mix, absolutely. My husband's American, so my son's a good mix as well.
Yes, I bet.
So without further ado, Nisha, I know that I've been excited to talk to you for quite some time. And there are a variety of topics where we could kind of zero in on, but at larger, could you first share your journey into this, what I call more of the energy space, and your journey, and then how you arrived into even the maybe the niche understanding of neuroplasticity?
Yes, Shilpa. So I'm originally from a dance background and I had a dance school for many years. And then I had a short stint working in Bollywood for Dev Anand's son, Sunil Anand, when I was very young. And then from there, I took early retirement and it sort of progressed into Pilates, yoga, mindfulness, holistic health with Paul Check. And once you start to inquire and look outside the box, you see how everything in the body is controlled by the mind. But the challenge of the human being is actually to lead with the heart and not with the mind. So I deal very much now with chronic pain patients, back pain patients, people with dis-ease, where the body's not at ease, like fibromyalgia, can be anything from cancer. And as you said, the words energy, where our attention goes, our energy flows. So although I originally started in movement, then onto Bollywood, I'm now at a holistic perspective, looking at the body from a place of feeling and being rather than thinking.
Well, that's absolutely a fascinating journey. And I also just wanted to comment on the movement form of dancing, because I really do believe that when you start feeling the joy in whatever you're doing, it could be dancing, which I've always loved, then it may accentuate your experience in healing.
It does indeed, Shilpa. So there's so many research papers out there and scientific papers on dancing. And the reason being is anything which is creative, like dance, playing music, doing art, singing, drumming, it actually crosses the hemispheres and we have a better ability to heal because we go out of our left brain and into our right. And as you say, we feel, and those things are very, very therapeutic. So I'm going to read you a beautiful quote. Instead of consuming, we go from consumption to creating. And that's the importance of dance. And I myself practice something called ecstatic dance. And I take a weekly class in the UK in something called Five Rhythms. And I believe you have it in the States as well.
I will definitely follow up on that. I've engaged in a variety of forms of dancing my entire life, and I'm by no means in your caliber, but I just get joy from it. And I even when I observe dancers like a classic Indian dancing or even
Oh, yes.
European dancing, just watching people dance, there's something so healing about it.
There is Shilpa, and I have to say as well, Shilpa, there is none of us are better than each other. We all have our specialities and our niches. So while I might be more expressive in my dance movement, you'll be more expressive in other areas of life. So the biggest myth we have in life is that we are all separate. But going back to neuroplasticity, we are all connected at a cellular level. So the Institute of HeartMath has shown when we walk into a room, particularly when we dance or we find any sort of freedom, the heart resonates to the people around us. And that's very important.
Oh, that is one of my passions as well. And I talk a lot about it on my podcast is HeartMath, heart resonance, and connecting to that space, especially as I've become more mature in my practices in meditation. I almost cognitively remind myself, it sounds silly, but when I'm meditating, I'll be like, okay, drop into the heart, drop into the heart.
We do, because the heart is like a beautiful lotus flower. So for the listeners in Hindi, the lotus flower is the Padma, and the Padma survives in the dirtiest of waters and lakes in India, and it truly can blossom. So if you've got the belief you can do something, you will. So going back to your neuroplasticity, Shilpa, there is a very famous guy called Dr. Bruce Lipton, and he has written a book on epigenetics. And about 20 years ago, he was laughed out of science, but now it has been proven that we can change our genes. So the genes load the gun, the environment pulls the trigger. So by putting yourself in a different environment and by practicing different things, we start to change. When we start to change, we can change ourselves at a cellular level, and the telomeres as well will start to grow instead of shrink, because we want to keep the telomeres long and expanding. When we don't challenge ourselves, we become intertwined in the body, a shrinking, a withheld field, exactly what you said, not expressing. So I've said that very basically, and there's more science to that, but we want to keep our telomeres expanding and long instead of shrinking and dying.
And metaphorically, when we talk about spirituality and spiritual growth, it is always about expansion. But when we are feeling, I would say, emotionally distraught or in a dark space, there's this metaphor of contraction and feeling stuck. And I do believe that when we desire that growth, or what some may people call healing, you're opening yourself to that opportunity for expansion. It could be on a cellular level, or like you were even talking about, it could be just your arms flowing in a dance movement.
That's right. Well, if we think of ourselves as a tree, and the tree is a beautiful yoga posture, so all the roots in the trees, we as human beings are connected to nature, and we are an expression of nature, but we've stopped that happening. So all the trees' roots communicate with each other. So when we find our firm grounding, it's true what you said. A lot of us don't want to express and grow up and expand our leaves and open out. But that is where we need to explore the world, because if we stay in the same behavior with the same habits, nothing happens. We've got to expand out, express ourselves through nature, because we are nature, and that's when the true healing can really happen.
And absolutely, we are nature. And when you were talking about Dr. Lipton, it also reminded me of someone um, more mainstream these days, at least, is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And
Oh, yes.
and I recently have been, well, not that recent, it's been last 3, 4 years, going really deep into shifting habits on a very deeper cellular level through meditation. And I love the expression of getting out of the habit of being you.
Yes. Well, Shilpa, this is the thing. So, in a lot of Indian yogis, they actually change their name. So, I do a lot of study in India, and I study a lot with Osho. So, in the Osho practices, although he's not alive. So, when you become a sannyasin, you change your name. It's the same in Buddhist practices. And this is important, because if I say to you, Shilpa, you associate me saying Shilpa with every behavior, every telling off you have had as a child, the same as you say to Nisha. So one of the practices I'm doing at the moment is my Pilates studio is not behaving as Nisha, not, acting as Nisha, because if I behave as Nisha, I get the same results. So I've given myself a different name. I've actually given my name of an elite runner who's, a bit mature now, called Paula Radcliffe. So by behaving as a different person, you take on a different personality. When you take on a different personality, your inner reality changes, and that's when change happens.
That is so interesting you should say that, because I have this book here next to me. But the gist of it is, it refers to your alter ego. And so in the morning when I do my mindset practice, I've over the years collected names of individuals or avatars that I truly believe they emulate the best of whatever that one quality is So one friend is very composed all the time. Another one is always enthusiastic. So I go through their names, and each morning I put on that hat, so to speak, or persona, and I remind myself that by behaving like the individual or avatar I want to become, I'm making that n- subtle shift on a cellular
Yes.
level, right?
It is. And it's exactly what you said, Shilpa. You hit the nail on the head. It's the subtle shift on a cellular level. And, it's really important because the more we risk being rejected in life, the better chance we have of being accepted. So sometimes when we say these ideas to people, they're not always accepted. But the more rejection we have, the actual more ability we will have to change, because change happens from a place of pain, in my experience. So when people are in a chronic pain situation, or they have a painful relationship, painful divorce, pain of money, that's when the shift can happen at a cellular level. So you either repeat the same behavior and stay in the same way you are, or you change your perspective. And when you change your persona, the cells will start to change and you will start to get a different result.
That's so fascinating. And there are individuals who may not understand this, but when I meditate, I actually don't, even though I've been doing it my entire life, I'm trained in it, but I struggle. And I often
Mm.
ask the universe, like, why am I struggling? In theory, I've had all the training. And then sometimes my consciousness reminds me, maybe it's like the seed that's under the ground and is still growing.
It is, Shilpa. And it's funny you said about meditation, because meditation comes from the East. And I find it very difficult to meditate because I have very strong Indian traits of travel. So gypsies originally originated from India. So Indian people are always doing, always going somewhere, always traveling. It's very much a habitual pattern and always working. They are very much workaholics, because in order to change their circumstances, they had to work very hard in the past to prove themselves. So I have those traits, and it's funny, I can see them in other Asian people, but you very rarely see them in yourselves. But what you see in others is actually a mirror of what's in myself. So for my meditation, Shilpa, I tend to do walking meditation or dance meditation, because to sit is just, quite challenging for me.
Yeah, I do hear that from a lot of people. It's taken a lifetime of practice for me,
Yes,
and the stillness I feel is remarkable. I like what you were saying though, and this might be a little bit of a leap or jump, but when you were talking about how we epigenetically or through ancestors have certain traits built in. So being the gypsy type and being the workaholic, I don't want to say workaholic, but maybe that's another way to
yes,
articulate it. Um, with my upbringing, it was the case that, it's a new generation of Indians coming to the States and having to prove themselves, coming with
yes,
very dire means back home. And so that level of struggle was always
yes.
growing up. And the other day I got, well, not, it's been a few months now, I started going deeper into human design. And I'm a manifesting generator according to the charts. And I was thinking to myself the other day, well, they say manifesting generator just works, works, works until they drop. But I can change that. I want to change that even written in the stars stuff.
Yes, we can't change the outside, but we can change our perception. So, as the photographer says, if you don't like the view, change the angle. So, that's very, very important what you've said, Shilpa. But a lot of people don't want to hear that. So, a lot of us, including me at times in our life, will play the victim, the saboteur, and we'll stay victimizing ourselves. And that is called the Cartman triangle. So, it's where you swap between the victim, the victimizer, and the saboteur, and you keep going between the three, and there's usually one or two other people involved. But the most important thing is to take a step out and look at it. Where have you learned this behavior? Why are you repeating it, and why are you reacting the same? Because we want to come from a place of reflection rather than reaction.
Absolutely. And that is, again, a lifetime of practice. I see it more and more instantaneously when the reactive old script comes out. And then
Yes.
I often I will look at it going, I'm having an out of body experience because I don't want to be that. Why am I
Yeah.
behaving that way?
Yes, yes. But at least awareness is the first step to change, Shilpa. So at least we all have awareness. And remember, we are all connected, like you said, at a cellular level. So when we heal ourselves, we actually heal the planet. So the way to change the world is to change ourselves first. And that's the quote from Gandhi. Be the change you want to see in the world. We can do it, but it has to start with us.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, taking it the big picture, because again, I find your journey so fascinating, and it's so integral to movement on so many levels. And you've also mentioned Pilates. I I can't help but think that you are so deeply embodied in your awareness of energy. Could you share a little more about energy within your body, your understanding of movement, and then maybe tie it back to the deeper stuff about neuroplasticity?
Yes. So at an energetic level, Shilpa, people who are listening will know the chakras. So the chakras, go up through the body, and energy resides in each of those chakras. So with Chinese medicine, every organ has a relation to emotion. So what happens is an energetic level, we cannot separate, emotion from the body. So if somebody has bereavement, somebody has divorce, somebody has pain of some sort mentally, you will feel it in a tight chest. The liver, we have sayings in the UK, angry liver, green with envy. All the organs are associated with different feelings and emotions. So from an energetic level, the whole idea of energy or the chakra system is actually to grow up the chakra system. So you're eventually at the top. But if you speak to any very, very highly qualified psychiatrist, most of us are stuck at what's called the child archetype, which is the root chakra, which is security and safety and connection to tribe, which is right down at the bottom, which is around age 9 to 11. So the whole idea is that we have the energetic level to climb all the way up. So although it sounds a little bit woo-woo, it isn't. You can look at all the politicians, all people around the world. Yes, they have lots of degrees. Yes, they have an adult body, but the behavior comes from a child archetype. It's from, waiting for mummy and daddy to say yes. And the whole part of energy or becoming a true adult is to raise our energy, climb up the chakra system. So we are free from the lower chakras and we take responsible for adults as ourselves. And remember, you cannot separate the thoughts from the body. So we are, depending on which paper you read, 60 to 70% water. So everything you say out loud and everything you say in your head changes the water, the cells in your body. So it was a Japanese guy, and I don't think I've got the pronunciation right. It's like Mr. Hoshimoto or something like that, said about the water and the power of water. And he did an experiment with rice. So if you're in a negative environment, you keep telling yourself negative things, that will manifest at an energetic level somewhere in the body. It can be a joint, it can be an organ, it can be anywhere. And long term, this can lead to dis-ease, depression. Depression is lack of expression. So it's not the only thing, but this is so important for neuroplasticity, because if you want to change your body as a result, as above, so is below. So that comes from the Emerald Tablet. So our body's a reflection of our thoughts and minds. So when we change up here, down here change. Our actions, our ability to give back to society changes.
And I just find the connection to water even more intriguing because you are now probably my third guest in a row who
Wow.
mentioned the studies that have been done around water absorbing the energy and the body containing water, but also it absorbing the energy of the thoughts and um, I would say even our consciousness. So
Yes.
there's a message that's being resoundingly being told over and over that our body is responding to this, and water is a huge element of it.
It is. Water is so important, and now our water in the water system has become so toxic with, lots of chemicals in and things, but our water is the gift. It really is the elixir of life. And, it's no good saying things if you don't take action and you don't believe things, nothing will change. So everything comes back to the basis of love. You cannot love another till you love yourselves. So one exercise I do with clients, Shilpa, is to hold a mirror. And if their name's Joe Bloggs, they have to look in that mirror and say, I love you, Joe Bloggs. But they have to believe it. Most of us can't do that. You feel stupid, you feel silly. And it's because at a deep down level, at the root chakra level, you don't believe it. But nobody can love you till you love yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, it reminds me of this concept, and I truly believe it, because when all good things have happened in my life, it's because my vibratory state has been
Mm.
ready to match what I wanted. And so when you love yourself and that vibration is high, you start attracting like vibration.
You do, Shilpa, and exactly the opposite. When your vibration's low, you attract a low vibration. So like attracts like. So misery loves company. So when you're sick, Shilpa, you will attract other people who are sick. And sometimes we cling on to that behavior or that archetype of being the victim, because that's the only way we can associate ourselves is with that problem or with that disease. And it's, not a great thing to say, but that is very, very true. So neurons that fire together wire together. So if you want to change, you have to change your perspective, change what you listen to, change what you speak, change what you watch, and change your peer group, because your peer group are everything. If you want to see where you are in 5 years, look at the peer group you're with now.
Yes, absolutely. There's a phrase around that I recently wrote down, but like you're the sum total of the five people that are closest to you. You've probably heard
Yes.
that before. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Anisha, perhaps those who are international but would still love to learn from you, could you share some of your projects and initiatives? And obviously, I would put it in the show notes, but I know I find it fascinating, so I want others to hear about it.
Yes. Well, I have a beautiful free book called Transformation with Nisha, which looks at moving the body the way it was meant to move. So it does strength training and it also talks about Pilates. But what's important in that book, it talks about food and the importance of food, because food really grows us into that vibrant tree. So if you put a tree in really poor quality soil, it's not going to grow great branches. But if you put a tree in good fertile soil, it's going to grow the strongest ever. So I've got that free ebook. I also have 2 or 3 YouTube channels which are full of tons of free stuff. This podcast and many other podcasts that I've been on gives lots of free stuff. You really don't have to, spend any money. And our whole purpose in life, Shilpa, is to serve others. So if you don't practice, you don't thrive, no matter how chilled you are. So we all have to practice becoming creators rather than consumers. And the more we give to the universe, the more everything comes back.
That's beautiful. And any parting wisdoms for often my audience are those who are, I would say, at a place where they're seasoned in life and they're often thinking of what's next, and they are deeply earnest in growing. So, anything that you could share, the one takeaway.
Okay, biggest takeaway I could give to anybody if they want to grow is to, find something they associate with that they and a way of learning is to learn a new skill. So when you learn a new skill and you're doing something, your mind becomes more open. So do something which resonates with you. So people say to me, Shilpa, shall I do exercise? I say, do the movement that you most likely to do and stick to. So, for me, I love podcasts. I love audiobooks. I love love going to the library. I love movement, but other people might not. Walking the dog might be something, learning, to do train spotting, learning to, aeroplanes, joining a group, mixing with different people. There is wonderful opportunities out there, but you've got to put yourself out there to get something back.
That is that is a great point. And I truly believe that the way in which you have been showing up in life and giving your gifts to the world is definitely reflecting on your energy. You just have this positive aura about you.
Oh, thank you, Shilpa. But we all have something to give, Shilpa, and this is the biggest misconception. And this is where separation and segregation come. And we see it every day in war, religion, politics, government, and schooling. The biggest myth we have is that we are separate from each other. So most of my greatest realizations have come from speaking to homeless people, because something they've said or an experience they've shared has been a bit of an aha moment for me, but your health is so important. And if you're trying to change, Shilpa, I actually start with clients with food, because in order to change, it takes a lot of energy. And if you haven't got good energy from a good food source, you're not getting good sleep, you've not got good hydration from good quality water, you've not got good movement, even if it's not walking, and you've not got a good mindset, it's very difficult to change.
Yeah, and those are all, you may want to call it food through the physical mouth, but it's all
Yes.
nutrition, right? Nutrition for the mind and soul.
Yes.
That is wonderful. One quick question, this came to mind before we wrap up. Um, when you mentioned nutrition, one thing that occurred to me is more of like the Ayurvedic, holistic, um, homeopathic. I mean, there's so many ways in which different cultures bring that
Yes.
knowledge to how they talk about food. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. So the problem is now, Shilpa, is the world is full of ultra processed food. And the biggest myth in India, which was put into India, was that vegetable oils are better than ghee. So in Ayurveda, we have kapha, vata, pitta. But the problem is the way roti's made, the way wheat is made. Now, with all the chicken and the meat and also the milk, it is full of antibiotics. So I know if I go to India and have a lot of that food, I'll come back really swollen, because everything's full of junk. So the idea is, ideally, is to go organic or homegrown. But, there is no right or wrong diet. Everything is personal and individual. So what suits one person does not suit another. And in India now, the biggest killer is diabetes. And there's a quote called, "An Indian man leads with his stomach." So now one of the biggest problems in India is fermentation in the gut. So the rice is causing inflammation, the amount of sugar and starch and all the beans and lentils are chronically inflaming a lot of the people there. So they have what's called a rice belly. And I see it with a lot of the temple holy men, they've got a rice belly, and this actually isn't health. So true health is an example of what you are yourself, the way you behave and how your gut is. Because remember, going back to your neuroplasticity, Shilpa, the gut brain is everything. So your gut communicates through a motorway of networks to the brain, and the brain communicates back to the gut through like a goat path. So you have to do your own study, see what works for you. I highly recommend the Price Pottinger Foundation. If you Google that, that's based in the States. So Mr. Price Pottinger was an orthodontist. He went round all tribes in the world. He found immaculate teeth and beautiful jaws, no disease, introducing now, Western food, junk food. And we've seen this in the Amazon jungle, and heart disease, arthritis, diabetes, cancer, all these things come from our Western life.
Yes, it does. And the word balance came to mind because when you were mentioning in the Indian, I wouldn't say culture, but among many Indians, traditionally the food for at least even the vegetarians tends to be more leaning on the carbs.
Mm.
And often that too comes at a price in modern day civilization with processed foods.
Yes.
So
Yes.
lentils, rice, and then
Yes,
processed oils that
yes.
causes that imbalance.
Yes, but everybody's different, Shilpa. And I think if everybody's cooking from scratch and looking what your gut needs, and your tummy is flat and everything starts with the poops, and you've got a good poop health, your poop should drop like an elephant or like a horse. It should just drop a bit, naturally without making a mess. That is the secret, really shows where your health is. So you have to do what's right for you. But cooking from scratch, whether you're vegetarian, whether you're keto, all these people who cook from scratch and go back to eating clean to start with are all healthy, but you have to look what's right long term. So a pure diet of vegan wouldn't work for me. A pure diet of meat wouldn't work for me. Somewhere a bit in the mixed in the middle is what I feel works best for me.
Yeah, it is a personal preference. Okay, well, Nisha, I could talk to you for hours. Thank you so much for this conversation, and I'm looking forward to perhaps reconnecting with you on another related subject.
And thank you so much, Shilpa, for the opportunity. And we have connected tonight through the heart. So as you said, the Institute of HeartMath said, everybody is connected somewhere along the line. So thank you for that amazing opportunity and sharing your knowledge as well tonight, Shilpa.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Nisha, and I hope you have a lovely day.